All right, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hopefully you can hear me. Just walking around the land a little bit, do a little walk and talk. So, my history of bands with backing tracks goes back to probably 1995, early 96. I was in a band in Alaska called Cats Meow, and it was a three-piece band, and we went and recorded all the extra tracks, thickening background vocals, even some extra guitars. Just we wanted it to sound full spectrum, for a great experience for the crowd. And so we went in and we used, remember the ADATs, DA88s, which I forgot to mention as recorded medium the other day when I was talking about something in that context. But either way, we went in and recorded tracks, spent a few weeks recording the extra tracks. I had to learn all the parts, and we did background vocals, and we did keyboards that we weren't able to play live. And we went out, it was kind of like a, Duran Duran, and won't you take me to Funky Town. It was a female fronted band, and it was really cool pop music. So we needed a lot of layering, needed a lot of tracks. We were a three-piece band. No one cared. The crowd loved us. We kicked ass. I recorded all the cool samples and all the parts for Bruce Lee Enter the Dragon for Kung Fu fighting. I was like, everybody was Kung Fu fighting. I had like, ha, hoo, dragon whips his tail. All these cool, samples in there and stuff. It was cool. We had a good time. That one was pretty interesting. We basically striped a track. One track was the click track. We had some claps and some cues, vocal cues, like second verse and stuff. It would be, and we the main thing about that is we had one monitor. We weren't even using ears back then, which is insane enough. I think the drummer used ears, and we cued completely off the drummer. I had no click. I only had some cues in the monitor, and that was it. And that was it. That's how we did it, and it worked great. There were very few screw-ups, and if it did screw up, we had a sound man in the booth, and he could just stop the tape playing. Actually, I think it was on CD, or I forgot what it was on, mini disc maybe. He could. This was back in this is almost 30 years ago, 28 years ago. I think it was mini disc, which was cool. And so that's how we did it. Very few kerfuffles. The next time I did it was in one of my bands here in Florida, and just used it for keyboards, extra tracks, mostly keyboards, background vocals here and there because we were three-piece again, and maybe a guitar part here and there, and it was the same thing. It was just bounced down to, I think, mini disc, or at that time might have been my I think it was a precursor to an iPad, or to an iPod. I think it was like a Zune player or something like that, and it was WAV files in mono. One side was the music, the other side was click, and I had no cues or anything like that. I just had to practice with it quite a bit. That worked. Everything was fine. Nobody cared. People loved the performances. The extra tracks were in there. They could plainly see we were playing our instruments, so there was no issues. Check out my dogs right over there, see? And all was well. Next time was in my band in Nashville, and the drummer ran samples, ran tracks here and there off, I think it was an SP 505 or some kind of big pad thing that he used, and he toured with major artists, and they all used it as well. And we used it to taste for extra keyboard parts, some backing vocals here and there. I don't think much. Mostly it was extra keyboard parts and percussion. Oh yeah, also we used extra percussion as well, tambourines and Latin percussion. That's a good to use for backing tracks in a band context. And then we moved back to Florida. Every single one of the soundtrack corporate bands, we had the soundtrack 90s, soundtrack 80s, the soundtrack wedding, the soundtrack variety, the soundtrack tropical trio, was the soundtrack trio. They all had backing tracks to add to the fact that we couldn't put all the different keyboard parts and the percussion and some layering background vocals and stuff in there. Again, never thicken the lead vocal, never replace the lead vocal. All the instrumentalists on stage are playing their respective parts. There's just extra parts and enhancement because that is where the concert industry has gone to. That's certainly where the corporate industry, where sometimes gigs you would make $12,000-$15,000 for the gig. That's where it's gone to, a higher production value. And as Avid came in with Pro Tools and the venue soundboard started replacing Midas and Soundcraft and Alan Heath and other big names, analog consoles, they started integrating Pro Tools with tracks right into the front of house sound for all the big bands, and consequently that's what we saw. You saw all the bands using enhancement. And so on the corporate level, which was kind of like a mini level, and also the church was way ahead. Worship music, they've been enhancing with tracks forever. They're in fact the furthest out there. They've got the coolest players. One of them is Prime. There's a couple other ones, multi-track players that you can bring in and mute instruments depending on if the players are there or not. Completely accepted by the congregations and by the crowds and by the huge concerts and the touring industry in worship as well. So, what do I think of using tracks in a band context? I hate it. It's constrictive. I guess it's really good for the, or maybe it's good for the audience. I really don't know from audience perspective. It's hard to tell. I mean, I could tell when I go to concerts if they're using them or not. I guess it's fine for the audience perspective, but as a band member, and I've been on ears now for like 20, almost, I would say I've been on ears 21, 22 years. I used them before then, but I've been consistently on ears in a band about 22, 23 years. And there's my dog digging again. There's 2 Pyrenees over there. And it sucks. It's like when you were first learning music and you were playing along to albums or playing along to cassettes or any kind of recorded music. You're playing your part along to it. Even though, I couldn't stand to hear the parts. Eventually I took them completely out of my ears. I had some percussion, some vocal cues, and of course the click in there, and that's it. And I can't stand it personally. It's no fun. It's, if anybody screws up, you're on your own without the tracks. The tracks have to be stopped. And I don't find it as fun. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why I quit my Journey band, because of course we had some enhancement in there, because you can't cover all the keyboard parts. Journey uses them. Like I said, they call their tracks, they have background vocal thickening. They call it Elvis. They even have lead vocal thickening. They've had it in there forever. And most bands do. That's the whole kerfuffle with the Eagles right now. You got an 80-year-old man, Don Henley, out front trying to sing parts that he recorded in his 20s and 30s. Mostly 20s, maybe early 30s. You try to sing Hotel California key of B. I can't sing in that key anymore. I used to 20, 25 years ago. I sing it in A now, a complete full step lower. Of course these guys are going to use the available technology, which includes vocal layering. Tim McGraw was legend when he was a drunk back in the day, before his CrossFit days, using them, because he sang consistently flat. A lot of people on ears do. And the sound man was able to just go whoop, bring up the track, bring him down at the same time. Nobody is the wiser. And that's what Henley's been doing. When you're a band and you have tens of millions of dollars on the line of live shows, and you're in your mid to late 70s, and you might not be up to it, decisions are made from a business standpoint, and they may be using tracked vocals, basically blending them in there with your vocals. And if you're really bad that night, they'll blend them completely in and blend it down. Again, the audience is none the wiser, and everybody had a good time, and they felt good having their spending their $2,000 for the VIP tickets to see a living legend band, the Eagles and Henley. And I'm not advocating that. I certainly would not do that, but that was the decision made, I guess. And it's up to the band. Ultimately, it's up to you as the consumer. Are you going to support these artists, or are you going to not support them because you're mad because technology is at a certain point now and they use it? That's why I love the jam band scene, because it's live. There might be some tracks as far as like percussion and things like that. I highly doubt it. but maybe there are, like Wolfpack. They use, yeah, I don't know if they use tracks, but they have some pretty cool things. They probably use samples and stuff like that. It's probably about as far as they go in the jam scene, because it's so, you know, there's so much about jamming that it'd be impossible to use a constrictive, you know, fixed length type track situation. So that's my thoughts on tracks. I have a long history, almost 30 years with using them. I know how they're used. They've been in use regularly, predominantly, and dominantly during that time by every major artist out there. So seeing that there's some kind of a big controversy about them because people are just finding out about them is pretty hilarious to me. So in the context of a local, like solo or solo acoustic, or just a local band, if you can figure out how to use them, and there's lots of different ways, and I can do videos on that if you guys care. No one's going to care. People are going to like it. I don't know if you're a good band, if it's going to even make a difference personally for the crowd. If you're a good band, I don't really think you need to use tracks. You can arrange things in a way that where you don't need them. That's my take on it. I would rather not use them. I would rather jam live, but you know, I have a lot of experience with them as well. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, bye.